Hey there, Matt here, and I'm back to review the Pastor's Bible of the Christian Standard Bible put out by Holman and Lifeway, and so I apologize in advance. I am not a professional reviewer by any means, nor am I paid by Lifeway, though I would love to be. No, I am just here as a regular guy, a regular preacher that has fallen in love with this Bible, and I want you to as well. In my first review, I literally just opened the box and I opened up the text and I started looking at a few things, what I liked about it, what jumped out at my eyes, and that was about it. And I had a few comments in the comment section asking if I would do a follow-up after I've had it a few weeks, and now I've had it a few weeks. I've preached, I guess, about 7 or 8 sermons from it now, and each day that I have it, whether it's in preaching or reading it on my own, I'm falling more and more in love with it by the day. I am a single column guy, and this, I just love it. And so the first thing we come to is really the cover and the binding. That's the first thing you're going to see, and it's just exquisite. It feels good. It looks good. I love the ridges here on the side. It's got a nice feel in the hands. It's not too heavy. It's not too light. It's just perfect in my opinion. I have the goat skin. It's absolutely beautiful, and I believe will hold up for many, many years, if not the lifetime of my preaching. And so I'm grateful for that. Yet we know that we can't judge the book by its cover. It's beautiful. We know it's filled with the Bible, and it's filled with the Christian Standard Bible, so we know it's great. But there's also some content in here for pastors especially, and we'll look at that in a moment. But the first thing that we'll look at within the Bible is the table of contents. The books of the Bible, the contents in this, of course, thanks to Lifeway, we still have all of the books of the Bible in here. Thank you, Lifeway, for keeping them all together for us. That's fantastic. But after that, we also have some additional material, where to find it. The funeral helps, the wedding helps, some counseling helps, a few articles and some commentary there at the back for pastors to consider, and leadership and discipleship, all of that. We'll get to that as well. But looking at the Bible, of course, is what we're going to be actually reading and spending our most of our time with. First thing I'll notice is that the paper, it is thin, and there is some bleed through with it. However, the typeset is such that it's all lined up together. And so even when there is some bleed through, you don't really notice it because you're reading on top of what was there on the page before. That has a technical term, I'm sure. I don't know it. It's just all even, and that is fantastic for my OCD. So yes, the paper is thin. There is a little bit of bleed through, but it is not too bad. It is thick enough to not rip too easily, but it's also not too thick to be too heavy, especially with this size. Now, the typeset, the font is perfect for me. It is not too big to feel like it's a large print Bible, but it's also not too small that when I'm scanning the crowd and looking out as I'm reading the text and looking back, it's not hard to find where I was before. It's really easy because of the size to know exactly where I was before. And so I don't know how helpful this is for you with this being on YouTube or wherever you're watching this, but here is the text itself. So you can see the font size. You can see the typeset, you can see that it's single column, and again, you can't very well feel the pages, but they are high quality, though a little thin, but they are perfect for what this Bible is. It's not going to rip or tear over time, and I'm grateful for that. Another thing that we could point out is that there are 3 ribbons here. I preach Sunday morning and Sunday night, and so I have a ribbon dedicated for those 2 texts, but we also begin our worship service in the morning with one of the Psalms, and so I usually have that marked. And so for me, I mean, this we're talking kind of likes and dislikes here. I like having the 3 ribbons there for my morning, my evening, and my psalm reading there in the service. But hey, if it had 2, if it had 1, I would still love it. If it had 20, fantastic. You can mark the whole Roman road, whatever you would like to do with it. But there's 3 ribbons, 3 different colors to help you find exactly where you want to go. And that helps us to turn to the text we're preaching, or maybe a favorite verse that maybe we want to share at the end of our service, or whatever. However you want to use that, that's there for you. I mentioned the single column. Again, this goes back to something that I told the guys at Lifeway, that I would buy a preaching Bible the moment it came out if it was single column and if it didn't have the red letters. Now, that might be important to you, but it's not to me. I did not want the red letters in there, and there's none in this one. And so I'm grateful for that, and it's single column. So when I'm scanning the crowd, reading the text, and then looking up, and then looking back, and looking up, and then looking back, and I could say that 100 times and really annoy you, but instead I'll just say I can find my place right where I was really quickly, and I love that. So summarizing all of that, paper a little thin, there is a little bleed through, but it's lined up so you don't notice it. The typeset, the font is perfect on the eyes. It's easy on the eyes. It's spaced just well enough to be easily read and looked at from the crowd and then back and find exactly where you were. There's those 3 ribbons that I mentioned that seem to be great quality as well, which really matches the great quality of the Bible itself. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of the Bible text and how it's laid out. But with this being a pastor's Bible, they also went above and beyond to make this a truly pastor's Bible. Not just something that you could preach from, but something that could be your go-to source for counseling, for leadership help, for discipleship help. And probably my favorite feature in this Bible is going to be this pastoral care section there towards the end, right after Revelation. It tells you where to turn when you want to take revenge or when God seems distant from you. And I'll also point out, I've read through just about all of these now, that these aren't just proof texts. They seem to have taken some time to really find some contextual passages here for when you're struggling with something like abandonment, or when your past or your regrets are haunting you. And this not only will help you in your counseling ministry, but I would say it would also help you in shepherding your own heart. When you're dealing with some of these feelings, there you know where to turn if you didn't already. And you've got it right there. When you're feeling bitter, when someone has wronged you. Pastors, this is something we deal with. We've got to have thick skin. Well, there it's going to tell you where to turn with a very contextual, faithful text to help you deal with that. After that, we come to some articles on leadership. I believe there's 14 or 15. How to be a church leader, finding your identity in Christ. I would say this is probably the most important article that's in here by the Jared C. Wilson. There's also a few on biblical preaching by Kyle Idleman, preaching Christ from all the scriptures, giving an effective invitation with a few steps there, 5 ways to improve congregational singing by Keith Getty, and there's others. Now, let me say I can do without this, but it's helpful to be in there. So whether this is in an article or something that I could read that they send out in an email, or it's here in the Bible when I've got it with me and I'm at the coffee shop and I just want to read about a few things, there's some helpful notes there in the back of the Bible that can help you. Again, I could take or leave it. It doesn't make or break this Bible. It doesn't make or break this as being a great resource, but I did want to point out that it's there. Now, on the last one I shared that I wasn't sure if I was going to be a fan of the wedding ceremonies and the funeral sermons there in the middle of the Bible. And we'll pull that back out for you. There's, I believe, one of the wedding ceremonies. It's got a contemporary one, a classic one, and then a funeral or a few funeral sermons for whether it's a child or an adult or some of that. And let me say, I get why it's there. Many of us perhaps will preach a wedding and maybe put our notes right there in the middle so that it appears that we're reading out of the Bible and has some emphasis there, or it's right there where we want to turn to the text that we're going to read. Maybe we have a few things that we want to point out in a funeral that we just put a little stick-it note there in our Bible. So I get why it's there. But I will say that I'm not the biggest fan of it. I don't think I would ever read from this, even with fill in the blanks and so forth. So it's not my thing, but I can live with it. It doesn't at all change my opinion that this is a must-have, in my opinion, for preachers that use the Christian Standard Bible. It's great. All of the stuff that's there in the wedding ceremonies is great. And so if that's something that you might be interested in, hey, it's there. And it's fantastically, conveniently placed right there in the middle. So you've got your Bible open. You can preach from the pulpit. You can walk around. It's all right where you want it. And so maybe you don't have to have your binder or your notes or whatever for a wedding ceremony. It's right there. Yet, of course, that may not be your thing. I did want to point out it's not my favorite, but it by no means takes away from how I love this text for preaching. And so I love it. Now, this is the Christian Standard Bible. I joke that I'm now a CSB onlyist, yet I will point out, though this is not about the Christian Standard Bible, I do love that as a pastor, that the Christian Standard Bible focuses on both accuracy, its faithfulness to the manuscripts, while also being readable. Many of the translations that we have err on either one of those sides. This seems to be a good balance between the two, and it's a balance that I'm happy with. And many in our church have grown to love it as well and have gone out and bought their own, which might be why Lifeway is so loving and caring in their pastors when they sent me one several months back when my office was flooded. And so thank you, Lifeway, for this and the work that you put into these. You can tell you love the Word with the care that you put into making the Word very accessible into the hands of members, into the hands of pastors in this case, or students of the Bible with the study Bible. And here pretty soon, once I've kind of spent a little more time with the Spurgeon study Bible, I'll share some of my thoughts with them. So I would give this a 10 out of 10. I'd give it more than that if I could. It's fantastic. It's great quality. It's going to last for a long time. It's very readable. It's perfect for my needs, and some of the things that I've shared this morning may or may not be perfect for your needs, but so take that into account. And if you want to know more about the Christian Standard Bible, go to csbible.com and you can find out everything about their translation philosophy, find out different different texts and how they compare with one another, and see if it might be the Bible for you as well. But until next time, have a great day, and God bless you as you serve Him today.